Hello, and welcome to another episode of Compugen's Popcast. My name is Adrienne Veneziano, and you probably know me from my Ask Adrienne videos. I am excited to host a series of popcasts on the future of education, specifically covering what I am most passionate about, technology-infused teaching and learning for better student-centered learning outcomes. But more importantly, what most people who are part of the industry or have scholars within the education system are highly interested in. And that is, how will teaching and learning look and feel for all individuals involved following a pandemic? Why is she calling it a popcast? If you were wondering, it is simply because we at Compugen believe in the power of possible, POP, in everything we do, hence our name. So sit back or enjoy a walk or maybe even your daily workout as I bring you insights from 4 educational industry experts with a focus on accessibility, equity, and connectivity. We are excited you're able to join us for what is sure to be an insightful and telling session about the future of education. Compugen is passionate about education, and students are at the heart of everything we do. Our focus is to support educators and students through remote and hybrid learning environments. Educators, students, and parents have shown incredible resiliency during these unprecedented times, and that's why we have built the Learn at Home program to provide these individuals with the tools they require to succeed from wherever they're learning from. Thank you to our panelists for joining this session and willingness to share insights and lessons learned and what we can do together to provide and support scholars and educators as we move forward from the pandemic. We know education has changed forever. The future of education is more difficult to predict, but easier to create. So what does it look like in the future? During our time together, should you have questions, please place them in the chat and we will attempt to answer them at the end of the session. Now let me introduce our esteemed panelists who will share their insights. Dwayne Matthews, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you. I was just making sure that I had unmuted. I know that a lot of times I really want to have a t-shirt that says, remember to unmute. But anyways, my name is Dwayne Matthews. Once upon a time, I taught grades 3, 4, 5, and a little bit of 6. I also did library. I did that here at a inner city school, or what we call model schools in Toronto. And then I also did that in Lima, Peru at FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt International Private School. Somewhere along the line, I was driving on my way to the Amazon and I decided to leave education. It's a long story, happy to answer it later. But there I started a company that really focused on any kind of paradigm shifting innovation and technology. I exited that company in 2013, started another one that was an absolute failure. And from there, after I was sitting licking my wounds, I really thought about paradigm shifting technologies and the future of education and where they would meet. And I set out on a journey to try and help to understand that and to understand how other people were thinking about it. And that led me here to you.
Thank you, Dwayne. And Elka Walsh from Microsoft Canada, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks so much. So excited to be with you all today. My name is Dr. Elka Walsh, and I am the National Learning and Skills Lead with Microsoft Canada. It means that I get the incredible job of partnering with schools, school boards, and ministries of education, as well as higher education across the country of Canada to really support the future of teaching and learning. And I've come to Microsoft after almost 20 some odd years in higher education, teaching as well as leading curriculum development, faculty development, and quality assurance in teaching and learning. So really super excited for our conversation to reimagine the possibilities for learning together. Thank you.
Thank you, Elka. And Willa Black from Cisco.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Compugen, for including me. I'm really looking forward to a fantastic conversation on this beautiful day. I'm Willa Black, and I'm responsible for corporate social responsibility and social impact at Cisco Canada. So that means leveraging all of our technology and some investments to really drive social benefit with a focus on K-12 and education. In 2011 at Cisco, we began working with Inuit Tapri Kanatami, the Inuit peoples of Canada, to look at ways that they could engage their students more dynamically in the classroom by using virtual learning. Virtual learning, experiential learning was something that was completely new in Nunavut. They didn't have the technology, they didn't have the digital curricula, they didn't have the capability or training. And so Cisco, working with the team and a broad ecosystem of our partners, including Compugen, we launched it. And you're looking at it right now. The program was called Connected North. We began in a pilot school in Iqaluit in Nunavut, delivering virtual sessions, mentoring, mental health and wellness services, virtual field trips, and all kinds of learning supports, a highly adaptable curricula. It went so well that it ramped up very quickly to 8 schools, and we realized that the demand for these sorts of services in remote Indigenous communities where these experiences aren't typically available was hugely relevant and much needed. And so in 2016, Cisco spun the program out as a dedicated charity. We're still heavily involved in it, and we're so proud that today the Connected North Network reaches 130 schools all across the country, from the Yukon to Nunavut. We serve 21,000 students and over 500 active teachers. And so we've had a lot of great learning, particularly through the pandemic, about the impact of experiential learning, and really looking to share more through the conversation.
Thank you, Willa. And Matias from HPI Canada. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, Adrien. And again, I'm not from HPI Canada. I'm actually sitting down in Miami, beautiful Miami, Florida today. I'm the global HPI strategist for education. And my job is actually quite simple. My job is to see if we can figure a way in which technology can enable and empower you to create amazing learning experiences, to really improve human capital development, but looking 10, 20 years ahead, not what we need to do to fix it now. So what do we need to do together to leapfrog human capital development? Well, we used to call education, right? And to what you just said, Adrienne, because you said that the future of education is very difficult to predict, but easier to create. Once I had one of the trips that I did around here at Disney, and I read that if you can dream it, you can do it. And the best way to predict the future is, well, to build it. So that's the invitation I want to leave to you guys today. Let's work together and get it done.
Thank you. So let's start off with our first topic of discussion. It's clear the education sector has progressed at an accelerated pace due to the pandemic. Certain aspects of learning have not progressed as quick as we had hoped, those being accessibility, equity, and connectivity. How do you feel this has been addressed or can be addressed to ensure no student is left behind and all students are set up for success, acquiring those future-ready skills that are becoming a must-have and not simply a good-to-have? Dwayne, would you like to start us off on that discussion?
Sure. And I would like to say thank you to the other panelists as well. It was really inspiring hearing some of the things that you guys are doing, the Connected North, the stuff that you're doing at Microsoft and HP. I think it's all terribly inspiring. So, I think when we think about equity, a lot of times I think it's important for us to have a common understanding or common knowledge about what we're speaking about. And a lot of times people get equity and equality confused. People think, equity is really about everybody having the same thing, but it's not. That's really about equality, and equity is it's a little bit more nuanced. So the truth is in the nuance here. It's a little bit more complex, and it really has to do with fairness and justice. And fairness and justice is sort of an intersubjective reality. How do we decide what's fair and what's just? And we realize that we decide that sort of on the fly. So if you will permit me, maybe I'll tell a story, and that'll help us to get to the question. And I'm a little bit of an introvert and quite shy, so sometimes I take a while to express myself. But if you can imagine that formal education has always been about technology. right? So probably about 150 years ago to 200 years ago, we decided to create this strategy called formal education, and we used 600-year-old technology called the printed book. And next to the printed book, we got technology that was developed around 1662, and we call that the pencil. And if you were really lucky and you were in the higher grades, you might have gotten a new piece of technology from 1888 called the pen. And we believed so much in the transformational power of this main technology that we took our small children and we put them in the hands of strangers for about 6 hours a day for 192 to 194 days. And we did this globally around the world through a Prussian model. And so once we did that, we realized that technology was a really important part, so much so that we said every single school everywhere on the planet needs to have this technology because it has a profound impact on the economy and future of work. It was such a long time ago that we forgot that this was technology. So today, when people talk about technology, they speak about it like it's an other, kind of like doing exercises or drinking a green smoothie in the morning, not really a part of their life, but the technology is actually a part of their life. So we have maybe about 4 or 5 converging exponential technologies that are converging on the world that will transform our economy. And so when we look at it that way, then we have to think, well, what happens with the students? Now, the technology that we used in the past was the book. We couldn't take 1,000 books around with us. So we had to memorize as much as humanly possible. And we categorize students based on that ability to memorize. The A's and the B's were people that memorized really well, the C's and the D's, the people not so much. And then we found slots for them in the economy. And hopefully the idea was to create prosperity for everybody. Today, we're moving to a knowledge-based economy. And if we're moving to a knowledge-based economy, it means that we actually need more brains in the knowledge-based economy. And the key fundamental components of that is connectivity and access to device. So in terms of equity, maybe fairness and justice is a bit challenging. Maybe what we may want to do, instead of going down a really big philosophical discussion, is to think about what is the outcome that we would like to have. The outcome is the overall prosperity of our economy. And when we look at it in that lens, then we have to find that all the students all the way to the connected north, all the students down to the south, everyone has to be connected. We need more brains at the table, we need more tables, and we need more connections. So in terms of where are we today, have we done enough? I think we've done a decent job, but I think we really need to look at the premise and think about what is the common north? What is it that we're trying to do? And when we think about what is it that we're trying to do, then we start thinking to ourselves, would we be comfortable if there were a school with no books in Canada? And if the answer is no, then we need to figure out how do we take all of these devices and that connectivity and spread it, not just because it's a nice altruistic thing to do, but because the prosperity of our country and region depends on it. It's a matter of national security. So I think in that context, I think we realize that we have a lot more work to do.
Thank you, Dwayne. Willa, do you have anything to add?
Yes, that was really well said, Dwayne, and could not agree more. And I'll just react as a mother. I've been up to 13 northern communities, very remote Indigenous communities, some of the most violent communities in Canada, actually, and the conditions are so challenging in a lot of these places, and there was no virtual learning that was available at the time. And the thought of actually putting WebEx-based telepresence, Meraki technology into these schools, that's a challenge in and of itself. But then trying to figure out what role does digital learning play in these classrooms where it had never been introduced before. Many of the classrooms, that was a lot to kind of take on. But you know what? We just decided we were going to dig in and we were going to start and we were going to see how far we could get. The thing that surprised me the most about this program is the unbelievable rate of adoption. You know, I remember being in front of grand councils and presenting the program, and, you know, the chiefs would look at me, and I wasn't even 5 minutes in, and would say, where do we sign? Like, how fast can we get this done? And so, you know, that's how, since 2013, when we came out of pilot, we've gone from 0 to 130 schools, and we haven't had a single school drop out of the program since we started. The government is putting in an enormous investment into broadband through programs like Connect to Innovate, the Universal Broadband Fund. And, you know, again, as a mother, when you see the potential in these communities, you wonder why those kids can't get access to exactly the same resources that our kids in the South have. And we need to do a way, way better job of ensuring that that happens. And governments can't do it on its own. It needs private sector engagement as well. But one thing I will add also, and I say this to governments all the time when we're in consultations, the first time I landed in Iqaluit, and the head of community government services sort of met me at the airport, and we were driving back into the office, and he pointed to a warehouse on the way in, and he said, you see that warehouse over there, Willa? That's packed with telepresence equipment. We have all the equipment we need. We just don't know what to do with it. You know, we don't know. Our teachers are so overwhelmed with the demands of their jobs, you know, working in some challenging conditions. And, you know, they need to know who they can connect to. They need to make sure that the technology is seamless and that it works. You know, they need to be fully supported. So it became so clear to us at Cisco and the whole Connected North ecosystem, we had to build content and teacher supports in a way that made it highly customizable and seamless. But if the government is going to be pouring millions and millions and millions of dollars into bandwidth for meaningful social outcomes in both education and health, you need to make sure you've got those content programs, those telehealth, you know, opportunities that are well organized, that are clearly articulated, and that are developed in very close partnerships with the communities themselves. And I think, you know, that's been our great strength at Connected North. We have very tight ties with the communities. We've been able to not only take advantage of those bandwidth investments, but invest in the technology solutions and ensure, you know, taking our lead from the communities, that the content is relevant and that it's what the kids are really going to benefit from.
Thank you. Thank you. And Connected North is dear to me too, because I visited and I was able to engage in learning with the people of Iqaluit. So thank you.
Yeah.
Matias, can you share with us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's inspiring to hear Dwayne and Willa, right? Because Dwayne, you started with the technology on the 1700s, and Willa brought that to 21st century and how to connect very challenging communities. So let me see if I can put this together for us. I'm going to see if I can pick one example, because Dwayne was in Peru. I'm going to bring an example that we saw happening not long ago in Peru that tried to provide equity, connectivity, and accessibility on a completely out of the box way. And this is what I want to leave kind of is inspiration for you guys. There's not a one size fits all. We cannot apply a model that will be relevant for all the communities that we serve. So we need to think completely outside the box. So about a month and a half ago, a security camera on the Jackie Plaza, Dwayne, over there in Lima, Peru, picked up on their security a mom and a boy sitting on the bench on a completely empty mall, right? And they were just sitting there. The mall was empty. So the security came and approached them and asked, what are you doing here? The place is closed. There's no shops. No, we don't have connectivity at home. So we came over here because we found a Wi-Fi signal that was open so my son can do his homework. Well, that didn't take long for that security guard to talk to an executive at the Jockey Plaza, in which they decided, I think we should do something better in here. And they improved their internet connectivity. They called us over there in Lima, Peru. It said, because you guys are doing some crazy stuff on education to kind of reinvent experiences, can we do something for this? So what we decided to enable on an empty mall is to create connected learning spaces on empty walls in empty stores. And the plaza became a connected access port to everybody. So now students can have classes in there. The teachers can go and teach class from there. If I'm a young adult, I want to develop my entrepreneurship skills, I can go there. So what I'm bringing with this is that, as Dwayne very well said, technology is just a tool. It's what we do with it. It's what will really cause an impact, right? So what we're trying to do, and we're trying to help you guys get it done, and that's why I was so emphatic with get it done, is that a day that we lose now, we cannot recover. And that for me is close to my heart, because this year of COVID, if you look at the global metrics, 1 in 7 students lost 3/4 of the academic year. For me, that's unforgivable. We cannot allow that to happen. Canada is on a kind of a privileged side of this, because the pandemic was not as severe in Canada as other countries. Look what's happening in India right now, right? So you guys have connectivity. So there's the challenges. I'm not going to say it's as big as other ones, but it's as challenging as well. So let's sit down together, think completely outside the box, because what we want to provide and take the opportunity that COVID is giving us is to, well, education now happens everywhere, and everywhere should be part of our strategy, should be another component that us as educators, teachers, community leaders, and us from the industry should be looking at it, and how do we can partner together to find the right solution for that community, for that school, for that teacher, and for that student. So Dwayne, I thought about sharing that quite interesting case, because now malls in Lima, Peru became schools, man.
I love that. I love that story. I don't know if anybody's been to Lima, Peru, but when you get a chance, please go. It's a beautiful place.
And the food is amazing.
And Elka, can you wrap us up on this question?
Yeah, really happy to. And I love the tour de force in terms of the many facets of the complexities of how we can work together. And I think Will is so right. When we think about how do we create accessibility for every single student to engage in learning, it's really going to take the entire community, government, industry, and educators all working together. And, I think we've learned so much with the displacement that happened during COVID. We learned that many students don't have devices at home or the limited connectivity, as well as how do we continue to engage students that may face barriers in their access to learning with learning disabilities or physical disabilities that they may need to overcome, and how do we help create a more barrier-free learning environment for them? I think it begins with really universal design of learning. We knew this before COVID, how important universal design of learning was, because the technology is just the tool. And if we really think about how can we create the experiences that are going to engage every single student and enable them to engage in learning, how might we then leverage good solid design with universal design of learning, as well as then the tools that can empower that? And, I think about a few things that I've watched educators do that have really created much more inclusive learning environments, as well as access for students who face barriers. They're leveraging of the translation tools so that students who are English as a second language are able to engage with their peers, as well as captioning. We have a new tool, Reading Progress, which I'm so excited about, to really enable teachers to engage with their students early so they can identify students who may face some literacy challenges much sooner through some support with AI, so that they get time with every student to engage with them earlier in their literacy progress. And other tools like Lens, our Microsoft Lens, that helps students with visual barriers, as well as, OneNote, where there are math tools for students who may face dysgraphia, as an example. Tons of resources there. But to a point Willa made that I wanted to underscore, the criticality of supporting our educators. This is not enough that we just throw tools at them and we talk about universal design of learning, really investing together as a learning community to support them with that professional learning that is going to really enable them to integrate these tools and create those accessible environments.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Those were excellent insights. Thank you for joining this Compugen Popcast. Should you need additional educational information or resources, please visit www.compugen.com/education. Or you can reach out to me directly at Veneziano@compugen.com, and I would be more than happy to assist. Until next time, keep well, stay safe.